why did they have to eat raw meat?
In the first book of Nephi, 17th chapter, 12th verse, the Lord declares, I will make thy food become sweet, that ye cook it not. Thus far, nobody's been able to explain what that verse means. Until now.
Once they left Nahum, they were then going into where nobody could chase them. See, because word could have got back and they could have got the fugitives. So they had to get off that trail. That's why God had to intervene. It's the only time not the only time, but the major time he intervened. His voice told them all, you're listening to me. He humbled them.
Yeah.
And made them repent. And then he said, you thought it was bad before because they were complaining about the toughness of the journey. Wait till you see the empty quarter. You have to believe in God to survive the empty quarter. Because the empty quarter is so bleak. Without guide, direction, without the Leahonah, they would have never survived the empty quarter. And they were there, and they were no longer journeying, they sojourned. They changed the word from journey to sojourn. Sojourn means to stay in one place. And they stayed in one place for 8 years. That's when they had children. Even Sarai was not the old lady that is portrayed by Arnold Freeberg. She would have been very young because it wasn't a miraculous conception. We know she had at least 4 children in that 8-year period. Herself.
Wow, okay.
Because we ended up with 2 boys, Joseph and Jacob. Were born there. But it also mentions sisters, plural, meaning there had to have been at least 2 girls as well. But they're not mentioned, like a lot of the women in the Book of Mormon are more low-keyed. But definitely the 2 boys. So we know the journey did not take longer than 9 months to go from Aqaba to Nahum. It's probably much quicker because none of the honeymooners, any of them had children till after they went into the empty quarter. That's when the children were buried, and that's when they found out they had to eat raw meat.
Yeah.
That was very significant. And that's another thing I found, and I believe I was the first person because I'm the only one that's ever talked about it. Why did they have to eat raw meat? Now, we've seen so many Mormon folklore that, is the smoke attract attention, and people were after them.
It tasted better.
And they would have got them if they used fire, because the Lord said, I don't want you to cook your meat. And it always puzzled me. Why? I didn't buy in on the fact that because empty quarter, there's nobody there. Who cares if you have a fire? But it didn't really matter. So then when I studied some of the ancients not ancients, but say the explorers of the 1930s that first crossed the empty quarter, they found the same circumstance. When they went, they found lots of gazelles, rim gazelles, and what they call desert oryx. And desert oryx weigh about 800 pounds. So that's a lot of meat.
Whoa.
And not like a little deer. And they, when they went, once the British shot them, they went to cook them, and their local guide said, no, we don't, in this empty quarter, we eat raw meat. Well, that was quite significant. And Hugh Nibley mentions that in his writings about these explorers and how they ran. And he was very satisfied that that's why you had to. But that didn't answer the question, in my opinion.
What's the practical reason?
Right.
Because that ancient practice must have developed from some kind of practicality.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so it always bothered me. So what I do for a living is I guide expeditions all over the world. Africa, Middle East, so forth and so on. And when I was doing my first Antarctica one, I wanted to learn everything I knew about it because I didn't want to look like I was not intelligent on Antarctica, and I'm bringing people and I'm guiding them. I need to know something about it. So I read all of the journals of the early explorers, Shackleton, Odmundson, and all of those historical figures in Antarctica. What I found interesting, though, and different was Odmundson's journal account, because he trained in the Arctic to the north, not the south. Similar conditions. The only thing, though, is one big, huge difference between exploring for the North Pole, say, versus the South Pole. The North Pole has what?
Bears.
Well, of course, bears. Okay. And the one has penguins. That's a big difference. But the other big difference is
Santa Claus.
Exactly. The North has the North has people. We call them the Eskimos.
The Inuit Indians, yeah.
But they're Intuits.
Okay.
That's what Amundsen called them, the Intuits, because they have them in Upper Europe around the pole as well. And they're people that know how to live on the ice. Well, when he was trapped in the ice one winter, what always happened to those early explorers when they got trapped in the ice? They all started getting what? Scurvy.
Mm-hmm.
And he was no different. And Amundsen was going crazy. And what was driving him crazy, not the fact that they got scurvy, they kind of planned it. That usually what happens, and you try to have remedies for it. But what he noticed is that Inuits do not get scurvy, but yet they're eating the same things we are. Mm. And I thought that was very interesting. He says, well, they're eating seal, we eat seal. They eat caribou, we eat caribou. But they're not getting scurvy. They seem to be happy and fun and so forth. And he says, I got to figure out what the difference is because we're all dying. And, one of the signs of scurvy is your teeth start falling out and they really hurt. Mm-hmm. And he was in that situation. So he told his men, I'm going into the igloo. I want to see what's going on inside that igloo that we're not aware of that keeps them from getting scurvy. Mm-hmm. And as I was reading that, before I could turn the page, I knew what was going to happen. When he went in there and they sat down, of course, they were very hospitable people and they invited him to eat with them. And so they started preparing it. He noticed something immediately. They were not cooking it. They would take that seal and skin it off, get the old blubber and the raw meat, and they would eat it raw. He thought, this is amazing. This is the only thing they're doing different. So he ate it with them to be hospitable guest. He ate that raw. He said it squirmed him a little bit, but he ate it. It tasted nice to him. And when he went back to tell his men said, that's barbaric. We're not going to do that. That has nothing to do with why they don't have that. Well, he says, I don't care about you guys, but me personally, from now on, I'm eating raw meat. And guess what happened to his scurvy signs?
His scurvy probably subsided.
It went away.
What about the raw meat makes scurvy go away?
Okay.
Because usually it's associated with vitamin C, correct?
Okay. No, just keep it right there. You're jumping ahead of the story.
Oh. What
happened then, he finished the winter. They all survived. All of them. His men started eating the meat raw, and all of their scurvy signs went away. Well, then he goes back, and before he did his Antarctic expedition, he wanted to know why eating raw meat made him healthy. So he went to a nutritionist, scientist, and said, tell me, this is what I discovered. Tell me why.
They had MLMs back then too.
Tell me why. Tell me why. And so he said, okay, I'll do an analysis. What he found, the scientist, the Norwegian scientist, is that when in its raw form, red meat had a very high content, of ascorbic acid. Very high. What's ascorbic acid?
You get that in
that's
soda.
Vitamin C. Yeah. That's raw vitamin C.
That's literally on the nutrition fact of candy and food you buy in the store.
That's the whole essence. But he said, as soon as I cooked the meat, it went away. Mm. Now, all of a sudden, it went to me. That's why the Lord wanted them to eat raw meat. They were going to be 8 years in the empty quarter. There's no fruits and vegetables. They would have naturally all got scurvy and died and been weak. But to preserve them, rather than, this was the easiest way, was to just say, don't cook it. I'll make it sweet. You eat it raw. As soon as they got to Bountiful, what did he say? Light up the grill. It doesn't matter anymore. Because then there was an abundance of fruits and vegetables once again on their journey, and they didn't have to cook it raw. It made all the difference in the world.
So there is scriptural support for a carnivore diet.
Right?
Yeah.
and all those people used to think that ate rare steaks, that was bad for them. No, it's actually good for them. Because they get vitamin C from it.
So next time you go to a barbecue, instead of saying, do you want it, medium well, I'm just going to say, I want it Nephite.
Yeah.
So I want it sojourn.
I wasn't even looking for it, but somehow God led me right to that answer.
Yeah.
That's why I've always believed in ask and you shall receive, seek and you will find. And it works for anything. It really does.
Hey guys, Cardinellis again, and thanks for hanging out with us and Jim Gee. We've got quite a few of these interviews coming up, and he has quite a few evidences for Lehi and Nephi's journey through the Holy Land and the Arabian Peninsula that we are going to be sharing in a couple of upcoming videos. We're going to make a series out of this. In order for you to better enjoy the series and not miss anything, please consider subscribing to our channel. If you subscribe, also make sure that you press the alert button to get each one of our videos. I go through the analytics and I see about 41% of you guys have not yet created accounts, so you're not seeing all of the videos that we drop. Also, if you really like our content, please consider contributing to the channel through the Venmo link that is in the description. You can find us at Midnight Mormons through Venmo if you would like to contribute. Again, we know in this attention economy, there's many other channels that you could be spending time with, yet here you are choosing to spend this time with us. We are grateful and we thank you. Until next time, see you in the next program.